Today's sewing tip is how to hem a dress with a needle and a thread. If your sewing machine does not have the blind hem stitch ability, you will have to sew a hem by hand. I will show you how that is done. First things first, you must measure the dress with the person in the dress to whom the dress is for. It's a good idea to have them in their shoes that they're going to wear with that dress, and any slips they might wear under the dress, because fuller slips will pick the lower edge of the skirt up off the floor some. You don't want the dress to drag on the floor, so you want to allow at least an inch or 2 inches to keep the dress up off the floor. You also have to consider how much you're going to be folding over. Like maybe you'll fold under a ½ inch and then maybe an inch. Now I'm actually doing 2 inches, 1 inch and then another inch. And so that's the way I'm measuring it. So I consider 2 extra inches for the fold. You might only need 1.5 inches. Okay, there are 2 ways to thread the needle. The first and the most common way is to thread a single string through the needle, double the thread, pull the 2 ends together, and tie a knot. The second way is my preferred way to thread a needle, with no knot at all. I fold my thread in half and slip both ends through the needle, leaving me with a loop on the end. The reason I prefer this method is that it allows me the ability to work with a much longer piece of thread, which means less time to stop and rethread my needle. So this is a very full skirt, and it's a long way around the hem. I prefer the second method. So I keep a loose tail of the 2 threads, and I take care not to let it get sewed into the fabric. As needed, I can slide my needle up and make the tail shorter as I go. This keeps me sewing longer, with less stopping time with having to rethread my needle as often. To start sewing with the loop, this is how I secure my thread. I make my first stitch, then slip my needle through the end loop. While sewing, I hold the loose tail with my last 2 fingers. Now, for the blind stitch. We use a blind stitch when we do not want our stitches to show on the front of the garment. Choose a color thread that matches the fabric, obviously. I'm using black thread because this fabric has black markings in the design of the print. When stitching into the front fabric, make a tiny stitch, a tiny, barely noticeable stitch. The stitches on the underside, the back side, will not show, so it doesn't matter how long your stitches are on the back side, or whether they're at an angle, as I'm doing here. When you come almost to the end of your thread, make a knot and cut off any loose ends. After the entire hem is sewn, iron your hem for a finished look. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more sewing tips.